Good morning. The first thing I want to talk to you about is the Reflections Notebook because I'm getting questions and I sense some uneasiness and I don't want you to be uneasy, okay? This person created their notebook in a binder. Might not be a bad idea, but you don't have to do it that way. I always had my students do it in a spiral notebook because it was cheaper. And I could go to Target and buy some for those students that didn't bring supplies, which I had some, lower SES, socioeconomic status students that did not have supplies, so I could buy them cheap. But in this notebook, you will be given notes, and you'll actually be getting these soon, about the definition of reading. And then on the other side, this student used bulleted words to make sense or to construct meaning of what she was learning, okay? When I taught in the middle school, I used these because I had gifted students, special education students, and English as second language students. And I didn't know how to differentiate instruction. In other words, create instruction for each individual student. So this notebook did that for me. And some students would draw pictures in response to show me that they were understanding. Some would bullet words. Some would write paragraphs. My gifted kids would write poems in response to what they were learning. Okay, so you would see that they were differentiating instruction on their own. I had one write music to show me that he understood the different parts of story grammar, and his music, he explained his music to us as he played the violin. Okay, gotta love those gifted kids. And he would explain how his music went with that part of the story, like the conflict, you could hear it change, and the resolution, you had different music. And so I was able to see kids at their best. They were able to use their talents to be able to showcase their learning and showcase their understanding, okay? Completing it on a computer and having, entry 1, entry 2 may not be a bad idea, because that way you can scan it or you can send it as a document and, attach it at the end. I'm only going to ask you to send the lessons via Dropbox, and then at the end you can either mail it to me, you can use YouTube and show it to me, which is the easiest, okay? If I can do this, you can do this. Or you can, just send it as an attachment. So you have various ways that you can send it to me, okay? I hope that answers questions. And remember, it's a tool for learning. It's, you can even have kids work collaboratively on something, and they can write in their notebooks. And, it's an amazing way to check for understanding. And what I love about it is that you take it to teacher parent conferences, and you can show, like sometimes I would have to take 2 in and take the names off of, cover the name on one of them and say, this is where the student should be, this is where your child is, or to demonstrate that the student is excelling. And I love it. I mean, of course it's my creation, but it came from a science guy named Stencil back in 2000 who started it as a science notebook, and I have just expanded on it. I've put my own twist on it and added quite a bit to it. And my dissertation was actually on this, working with the students at Florida State, and they wouldn't let me keep their notebooks. I would get text, when are you returning the notebooks? And it was that way too with my students in the middle and high school. That was the one thing that they would not let me keep. They loved it. Okay, let's talk about what you read in the first lesson. Okay, we read about the different parts to a person. We have our cognitive abilities, which is how our mind works. Reading is a cognitive skill. Okay, that's why it's difficult to know exactly what's going on into someone's head unless they demonstrate it, hence a reflections notebook, okay? You have the affective part, which is their attitudes and interest, which the notebook allows them to use their interest. You have the social part of them. Social learning is very important. I don't know if any of you have taken the course of psychology at Psych, but Vygotsky talks about that. And you have their physical side. You know, one year I had a kid that read like this. He was right on top of the book, and he was one of my struggling readers, and I had him tested for sight, and it ended up not being a problem. He goes, oh, I've just read like that my whole life. But you've got to be aware of your students and what's going on with them, and you've got to think about all those different parts, okay? The developmental process of reading. I think a major objective for this course is for you to understand the complexity of reading. And, you know, even if you only utilize this as a parent, it comes in handy. You've got the pre-reading portion of a child's development. And, you know, you saw the video where the parents were working with the little girl with their letters and, you know, teaching them by finger pointing that text goes from left to right and circles around, the front and the back of the book, concept of word, knowing that you have a word, concept of sentence, you know, that period or that exclamation ends it. Imagine your students that did not have books in their homes, they never saw their parents read. They're at a disadvantage, okay? You have level 1, which is basically decoding and learning, you know, the phonics, learning how to decode words. That's about kindergarten, first grade. Then at second and third, they're learning to read, and this is where a lot of kids fall in the cracks here. Level 3 is reading to learn. You know, you are learning to read, reading to learn, sorry, where they're developing their reading preferences. You're talking about late elementary, middle school, again, another place where they fall into the cracks. And reading to do is level 4, where they're doing academic work, that's high school. And then refining your knowledge is level 5, which is adult learning, okay, which is where you are right now, okay? I want to make sure you understand the difference between phonemic awareness and phonics. Aware, A-W-A-R-E, has ear in it if you unscramble. And awareness is not that you're reading, it's you're aware, you can hear sounds, you know that sounds translate into words, you are able to rhyme, you are able to clap out syllables, you are able to blend by ear, at, cat. Okay, that's all ear. And then you start working with those Elkanon boxes where you are actually manipulating the letters. Okay, so you're moving towards reading. Okay, this is where it's important that kids learn their alphabet. They need to know where T is. You don't want them singing the alphabet song to find T. They need to automatically be able to take their finger and put it on the T in the letter line, like a number line. You'd have it on their desk. If a student does not have that phonemic awareness, the research shows that they're going to struggle with reading, and I believe that. You know, I talk about the 5 areas of reading, the phonics, the phonemic awareness, the vocabulary, the comprehension, the fluency. I strongly believe in my world, my perfect world, that oral language should be part of that. Think about your socially, your low SES. You've got your low socioeconomic status students. They may be living in single-parent homes, and trust me, I know, I'm a single parent. Your time is limited. They may be working several jobs. This student might not have been exposed to a lot of oral language. They definitely were not taught the alphabet, or there may have not been books in the home, and they go to school already being behind. And that's sad. It makes me so sad. Don't even get me started. So I want you to make sure you understand phonemic awareness. The student is aware, okay? Ears, aware, ear. And those are activities that you will do when you're a parent, if you are going to be one, in the car. What does cat rhyme with? Bat. How many syllables does butterfly have? Butterfly. My child, of course, could not rhyme, which is easier than being able to clap out syllables. She could do that, but she couldn't rhyme. And basically I had to teach her how to rhyme by putting words up on the refrigerator, and she could see that their endings matched, and she finally understood rhyme. But it was frustrating for her. I felt for her. Okay, now I've gotten these papers out of order. Oh, you took your challenge to find out what your beliefs are in terms of bottom up, top down, or interactive or balanced way of teaching. You know, your bottom up is a behavioralistic view. You know, you learn those sounds, letters, words, sentences. You know, your top down would be taking the whole, which is exposing them to a whole lot of text, okay? And basically you're talking about whole language. I don't know if some of you were taught using whole language, but immersing them in that, and they learn how to read by immersion, not by skill building. And then my belief is a balanced, where you are teaching them the phonics, you are teaching them the letter-sound relationship, and then you're immersing them in literature too that uses those skills. Okay, so you need to think about, as a parent, what your beliefs, if you are going to be a parent. And you also need to think about, if a student is immersed in literature but does not have skill base, what happens? Or what happens if it's just skill and drill, but they're not exposed to books? So I want you to consider that, okay? I also want to talk about the formula, the Florida's formula, that's kind of on its way out. You're not seeing that as much, but it is important to know the 5 areas of reading, or 6 if you're dealing with James's version. And you need to know that when teachers assess reading, you know, the screening might just be the FCAT score from the last year, or the high stakes testing score from a state from the last year, and you look and you're like, ooh. And you know, that first couple of weeks you kind of do some, you're listening, you have them read a little bit, you kind of get a feel for it, and then you get into diagnostic testing for those students that are struggling, and that's a test like a DAR for high school, or a QRI, where you can find out what level that student is reading on the word recognition, like how well they recognize words, and then also how fluent they are. Their rates for reading, their accuracy for reading, if they add prosody, which is emotion in their reading, because that does help them learn how to read. And you also are able to find out how they're comprehending. We'll talk more about that, but just know that there are steps that you can take. And then there's progress monitoring, where you are keeping track of how that student is doing, all your students, how they're doing over the course of the year, okay? You give them their initial instruction, and then if they are struggling, some of them will go into intensive intervention, and that's what I taught. I taught the intensive intervention courses, okay? Okay, I think that's about it. I hope that you read the lesson 1 completely, and you read those 2 chapters that I provided, okay? And lesson 2, you're going to be watching some videos. It's very important that you watch them. What's important to realize, the whole point of this, okay, I'm giving you your purpose, which is important to give readers, or to give students, is that you need to see how complex reading is, understand it, and be able to, in your content areas, figure out what is going on with students that struggle, okay? I hope you have a great day. I am going to go ahead and put the lesson up. And if you have any questions, you know, don't hesitate to ask me. That's what I'm here for. Have a good day.